many generations of Indians from all communities, from all religions, have often wondered exactly what's the big deal about Ayodhya. Why have we been fighting for so long? Today, all that fight, all those arguments and counter-arguments come to a close. India is seeking a closure, and that closure comes to the Supreme Court itself. But it's been a very, very long journey. The first instance when the courts really got involved in the Ayodhya dispute was way back in 1950 when Gopal Singh Bishara decided to approach the courts, seeking his right to pray, questioning whether this Babri mosque which existed there in Ayodhya, was that really built on the remains of a temple? Let's just take you through the legal journey of this entire case now.
It all started in 1950 in the Faizabad District Court, where there was a plea which said, allow us the right to pray to Ram Lalla at this venue. The case was filed in 1950. The verdict was given in 1986 when puja was allowed. It took 36 years within just one district court and hearings and, of course, delays, inordinate delays. Then the matter went into the Allahabad High Court, and this was a title plea. This title plea was filed 3 years after the Faizabad court's decision to allow people to go ahead and pray to Ram Lalla inside that disputed structure. 1989, that suit was filed about the title suit, and that came to fruition or perhaps saw decision 21 years later in the year 2010 when the 2.77 acre parcel was distributed 3 ways across the 3 parties. The Hindu Paksh, the Nirmohi Akhada, or that Ram Lalla Virajman, Nirmohi Akhada, and of course the Sunni Waqf Board. Now that process took about 21 years. The litigants went to the Supreme Court. The case was filed in 2011. It was all about a title suit then, saying that this relief that has been given by the Allahabad High Court was never sought about. Now decide once and for all, who does this parcel of land belong to? Whether or not this is a Janmsthan is one aspect. The other aspect is who owns this land as of today. That decision 7.5 years later will come to a close today. And it is still counting. The time period is still counting. The decision, we should get finality and closure as far as the Ram Mandir, Ram Janmsthan is concerned, basis the decision of the Supreme Court. The time lost so far is about 355 days have passed, 69 years of legal battles across the courts, and it's all about who does this land belong to. The Honorable Supreme Court said we look at it just like a title dispute, nothing beyond that, but everything else has been added on and loaded onto this moot question as to who holds the title to this land. Mosque not integral to Islam was another decision that was made, and that perhaps changed the story of it altogether, along with Dr. Subramanian Swamy adding the parts that the government has the powers. The government has the powers to acquire the land and take the land for the cause of development, for the cause of society as the ruling power in this country. And why can't they do that? So these 4 developments over the years could add an interesting dynamic to the decision. This plea was settled in 29 years.
So it's been a long journey, 1950 to 2019. The Allahabad High Court verdict, the first major judicial pronouncement, which asked for the land to be split between three parties. Today, it'll be interesting to see exactly how the Supreme Court looks at that judgment, which was delivered by the Allahabad High Court. We got a response coming from Kartik Chopra, and he was in conversation with Anusha, our correspondent at the Supreme Court.
All right, joining me is Kartik Chopra. He has been the spokesperson for Nirmohi Akhada, fighting this dispute for decades now. Kartik, big day today. Yes. And all of us are beginning with the note that it remains peaceful and calm in the country. But as a litigant who's fought this case for decades, what are the hopes you have today?
We are hopeful that the judgment that comes will be one of finality, and it will define the way we all live together in this country for times to come. And we are optimistic that it will be a landmark judgment, and it will finally decide this long vexed issue. The Nirmohi Akhada has been in court for the last 153 years. We've been fighting for over 500 years. So therefore, we are looking forward to a sense of closure and finality.
Yeah. I also want to talk about the point, that even the Hindu side has divisions between themselves about the Shabiyat rights or the right to the core area, which is the disputed site here. How are you expecting the court to deal with the schisms that exist within the Hindu parties?
I think that for that we'll have to wait for the judgment, but the Nirmohi Akhada has always fought as the Shabiyat of Bhagwan Shri Ram, and has always done the seva, puja, archana, arti of the Janam Sthan and looked after all activities on behalf of the deity. And we have presented our arguments strongly in court on the basis of law, on the basis of established law of the courts. And we are hopeful that the court would have seen all this before it has come to its judgment.
My last question to you is about the Sunni Central Waqf Board. I remember the last day of the hearing and all the confusion that prevailed, that, you know, whether the Muslim side has withdrawn, whether there will be mediation once again, all the confusion and drama that prevailed. At the end of it, Sunni Central Waqf Board had a stand to present, a divided stand that they put forward. What will you say to your opponent who has fought, with you in front at the court for so many decades?
I think all parties have fought very strongly in the court, but it is time now to appreciate what judgment is going to come out. And I think we've all come here with equal expectations. Each party has come here for equal expectations, and it's for the court to decide.
Are you disappointed it couldn't be solved with mediation?
Not mediation is always a direct dialogue is always a good idea. That direct dialogue never really happened in the mediation process, as our lawyers mentioned it. But a judgment coming from the court at least will give a sense of finality, which very often is not achievable through third-party dialogue.
All right, Kartik, thank you so much speaking. You have a busy day lined up for you. Thank you so much. That was Kartik Chopra. He's clearly hoping that there would be some relief. A dispute that has gone on for decades. Now the litigant parties have started trickling here at the Supreme Court.
Yes, so let's welcome all our guests also this morning. Advaita Kala joining us live in the studios. Maulana Kasmi is there with us as well. Pandit Ajay Gautam and Vijay Shankar Pandey, who himself was a collector in Faizabad in the 90s. Warm welcome to all of you. Firstly, Vijayji, let me begin with you. In 2010, there was a judgment that was delivered. Let's just turn the clock back, just for the benefit of all our viewers. Because each time, and I've been through this judgment on multiple occasions, the judgment was very, very clear that the land should be split between three petitioners into three parts. But none of the parties agree with this interpretation. They say, no, that's not the way it is. Tell me, if a judgment which was delivered in 2010, if a judgment itself was not acceptable to any of the petitioners, which is why they ended up coming to the Supreme Court, what do you really expect the court to do? Do you expect the court to settle a question of faith through law? Is that possible according to you?
Bhupenji, when High Court pronounced its judgment in 2010, it very clearly said that none of the parties were able to prove their rights over the piece of land, disputed land. So what they tried to do, to my understanding, that they tried to settle the issue by equally dividing the piece of land between the three parties, and they must have thought that this kind of decision may resolve the issue. The problem with this case, as I've been saying since beginning, is the problem is that it's a Supreme Court says that it's a land dispute case, but faith has overtaken.
Can it really be? That's what I'm trying to understand. We're talking about whether Lord Ram was born at a particular place, and if he was born at this place, then this land belongs to certain petitioners who believe that this land belongs to them because Lord Ram was born there. So how can it ever be just a mere title dispute is my question.
Bhupenji, it's to my understanding, it's near to impossible. Anybody to prove that actually Lord Ram was born here. The Supreme Court has asked very pertinent questions during the hearing. We have been following the case. So they have been asking this question, can you say that Lord Ram was exactly born on the piece of land? And to my understanding, none of the parties could give a very convincing answer. The only fact that emerges and goes in the favor of the Hindu parties is that when the structure was demolished, a lot of remains of old temples came out of it. I was collector there, so I was party to collecting all the remains and keeping it in safe custody of the Archaeological Survey and the administration. So that became one of the main argument that there existed a temple before the mosque was built. But this, you cannot say that the temple was exactly there and got demolished and then the mosque was built. It may have been brought from outside. So Supreme Court has a very difficult task at its hand.
Ajayji, in the last 1 week, a lot of people from the RSS, from the BJP, they've all been briefing journalists, and the sense I get is that this judgment will end up becoming the premise on which a completely new political narrative of coexistence between Hindus and Muslims is going to be written. Is that how the Hindu parties are looking at this case today?
No, the issue is very clear. The land, as far as the BJP scenario, RSS scenario, and VHP, who is the stakeholder, everybody wants that there is a peace remain in this country after the verdict. Nobody wants that the country will be disturbed like 90s, like 92. So, what is the verdict of Supreme Court is
about to come. We can't speculate on that, and I don't wish to do that. I'm just trying to understand post the verdict, Advaita, how important this day will be. A lot of people have been pointing out that, well, it will go a long way. It will go a long way in settling the question of Muslims' ancestry itself. You know, was Babur the sort of a great icon for the Muslim community? Can he be a great icon for the Muslim community? I mean, these kind of questions. So we're not just talking about whether there was a mandir or a masjid. We're talking about what existed hundreds of years ago. And it's almost as if the entire lineage of one community is set to be recast. So is this like pressing the reset button today in Indian politics once this judgment is delivered?
No, I think it's very wrong to conflate, the identity, so to speak, of, Indian Muslims with Babur. Babur was an invader. He was a foreigner. This was land of conquest for him. And establishing these kind of monuments and structures in his name was a way of establishing his so-called royal decree over a foreign land. So I don't think we should make the mistake of conflating Indian Muslim identity, who were at the time of this invasion in 1528, were Hindus. And subsequently, with the advent or the entry of the Mughal Empire, we saw the kind of conversion.
Do you expect this question also to be settled?
So I think that this question...
Do you expect this question to be settled? Can Babur be an icon or not? Can this question be settled?
I don't believe he is an icon, and I don't think he can be, in the way that, Lord Hardinge, for example, cannot be an icon of this country, because these were foreign powers that occupied this land. So, they cannot be icons.
Kasmi sahab, would you... आप मानेंगे इस बात को? क्योंकि जो चर्चा है ना, देखिए, ये चर्चा सिर्फ इस बात पे नहीं सीमित है कि वहां पर मंदिर था कि नहीं था, वहां पर मस्जिद तोड़ी किसने तोड़ी, लिबरान कमीशन की पूरी रिपोर्ट है. देखिए, मतलब मैं तो ये सोच रहा हूं कि then what was the purpose of settling this Libaran Commission panel, which went on from 1992 for almost 15-16 years to figure out what was the sequence of events which led to the demolition of the masjid. If today we are looking at this case becoming the premise on which an entirely new political narrative has to be written, क्या आपको लगता है ऐसा संभव है?
No, Babur, we don't believe in Babur. Babur is not our icon. Prophet Muhammad is our. But the matter is, this piece of land, it was the mosque for Indian Muslim. We are Indian Muslim we have been offering our namaz here for 1947. So keep aside Babur. This is the matter of illegally. When people illegally demolish the mosque in the breach of trust of the Supreme Court.
आपको ये लगता है, आप ये कह रहे हैं कि आज जो judgment है, it should go into the criminality part, because it's not going to the criminality part. Let me be clear. This is a titles case.
Yes,
ये क्या हुआ, नहीं हुआ, किसने तोड़ा, नहीं तोड़ा, वो सब बात खत्म.
ये भी साथ में होना चाहिए, इसलिए.
लेकिन वो है नहीं.
Sir, the people who stand with that distributed structure, they connect themselves with the Babur. Because they fighting the case, fighting the case with regards to the Babri Masjid only. Babri Masjid, who is the Babur?
बाबर ने वहाँ नमाज नहीं पढ़ी, हम मुसलमान नमाज पढ़ रहे थे वहाँ.
नहीं, लेकिन इनका जो कहना है ना, देखिए गौतम जी का कहना है, and there is a reason why I'm raising this question. The truth is that there is an entire political sentiment which has been created over the last couple of weeks since it became clearer that this judgment was going to be delivered, which believes that once the Supreme Court judges speak out, it will become an opportunity, it will become a platform on which an entirely new narrative around the Muslim community could be written. How will this new narrative really shape up? What could be the contribution of this judgment? Whatever the judgment is something that we need to wait and watch out for. We'll come back and we'll keep this conversation going on the other side of the space.